Alright, Diablo players, some good news. You know how every single time you get a mythic drop, you see it drop that purple beam, you're like, it's a melted heart of Selig every single time. I don't know why. This one is a magnet. But nonetheless, we are getting some buffs and newer updates to the mythics in Season 11. I'm super excited, but let's go ahead and check them out. So starting right off with the melted heart of Selig. So what it used to do, we already know what it used to do. It's just like a bunch of defensive stats. It was pretty much trash, right? Where you gain some resources, and when you would take damage, a percent of it was drained as resource for every 1% of maximum life you would have lost. So now the new update is each point in your primary stat increases your primary resource by 3%, but you have 75% reduced life, so that's a pretty big nerf there. Almost like Mana Shield now, and then any damage you would take is dealt to your primary resource before your life. So this means if you're making a build that says damage while healthy, you're almost always going to have it up because it's not a percent anymore, it's just straight up 1-to-1, it's just taking all of your resources first. Then if you have not taken damage in 6 seconds, your resource regenerates to full over those 3-second duration. And if you take any damage during that regeneration, it does not cancel it. So you can maybe lock in with barrier. I'm not sure how it works because it says before your life. I don't know if that means after or before barrier, because this is pretty important for Sorc, because, well, you need barrier in a lot of different builds. So that's going to be interesting to see how this works. You can actually play this maybe even on like the Flurry rogue build because you want to like reduce your HP anyways because you want to have like extra damage, right? So that's going to be interesting. But we also have some offensive stats because, you know, defensively, I guess this is okay. But the resource generation got increased from 15% to 100. So you now have a good way to potentially just keep on going up with your resources if you're running a build with, let's say, the Cax rune, which used to be really popular, but then they nerfed the percent regeneration, as well as what you would get on like Lucky Hit Chance. This was an update they did in Season 10, but in Season 11, I mean, you're going to be able to maybe make use out of that rune combo again. And then also the damage reduction affix replaced with percent of primary stat. Now this matters quite a bit because normally you, in your amulet slot for like every single like good build, you would always run an amulet that said like a percent to strength, dex, whatever, right? And that's a pretty important stat. So this is going to be hopefully really good to the point where we actually want to run this. Now I also want to give Blizzard some feedback for the first one because again, I don't know why every single season the first mythic I get is like always this one. I'm sure some of you guys can feel the frustration once this drops, or again any of the mythics that are like trash in the game, and hopefully all of them are getting buffed. But the thing is that there's not really any good offensive stats on this, and most builds will want those passives, and then this when you get primary stat, if it's equal, then it's like okay, and then it's just defensive stats. And the main issue that I see with it is that it's great that it's going to increase your primary resource, but then you put all the caps. Like when we had Serpentine, it has like a cap. You put all of these caps on a lot of pieces of gear and or maximum like uniques or any sort of like passives, right? Where it's like per primary stat point you get bonuses, or like for resources you get extra damage, right? Since all of these are capped, this essentially kind of bricks your item before you even really get to see like a huge increase in like damage or anything related to that subject. So I want to say that like it'd be cool, and again since it's PTR they were looking for feedback, I'm telling you Blizzard, it'd be really cool if you put on this item to actually make it a mythic, because this doesn't really sound like it's really OP and it's going to make some builds crazy good. What would make this an actual mythic, an item that is like actually sought after, is that you put on the stat line any sort of stat that has a cap is now uncapped. Then you have a big brain, super cool idea for a brand new mythic to really come into the game and shake things up, because this has always been an F tier item, with the exception of in PvP it did grant immortality, but then that got nerfed and then no one ever plays this. This is literally garbage. And I want to say, even though we're getting some extra resources, maybe there's going to be some sort of game-breaking build. I don't know. But just off the top of my head, I still see it kind of being mediocre, especially when they don't explain what this primary stat is. If they make this 100% primary stat, then maybe, okay, there you go. Good enough. But if it's just going to be like, you know, 10 to 20%, then again, people would just prefer getting like a GA on a regular amulet, and then you get 3 extra passes, plus you lose out on the tempering, and then the brand new Sanctification, it's going to be a lot harder on a mythic, because what are you going to do, craft more Seligs? I don't know. All right, and next up, there's another change to a mythic. The damage over time duration got increased from 44% to 111%. So I don't know if this will make people play like Shattered Vow over Creeping Death. Now, this is a pretty decent amount. Like, you're just doubling the dot damage, right? And then if you have your poisons where you have a chance to get that, like, double duration, maybe you can consider something, but for the most part, I would say losing out on the aspect is too big of a deal for most builds. Off the top of my head, I would say this is still considered a bad mythic, and I really want to see some bigger changes to the mythics, to make them like actually feel like super powerful. Maybe it was like if your damage over time was like, you know, times 10. The problem with Diablo is you need these numbers to be so high because of the aspects and the tempering, and then again the sanctification. You're losing out on another legendary aspect on a two-hander with the new sanctification. I just still find it hard to recommend Shattered Vow, but you guys can let me know. Maybe I'm tripping. Maybe this is going to be super good, but I just don't see the first two really making it. Next up though, Tyrael's Might. Let's see the new changes. So all resistances is updated to 80 all resistance. Okay, so as far as it goes, I'm gonna be real. Resistances in Diablo 4 are basically optional at the highest level of game. You need armor, and then now we have physical damage reduction, and they're reworking armor resistances for I don't know how many time. We're gonna have to wait and see if it matters, but for the most part, armor is important, resistances, and now it's like some arbitrary number that probably is inverse multiplicative, which means you get like less and less as you get more resistances, and you can never cap resistances in Season 11. It's a new update that they're doing. We'll wait and see. They're supposed to make the game way harder, so maybe this will be a really good stat. I don't know. And then also, maximum resistance affix is replaced with resistance percent. This could be pretty big because if you have a bunch and then you get like, you know, 20-30%, it's going to boost up everything. But again, armor is the only important thing that matters. Does this make Tyrael's better than Shroud of False Death? Hell no, because Diablo is a game that's all about damage, right? So I would say Tyrael's Might is not like a terrible item. I still think it's one of the best defensive items in the game, but most people that play this game, by the time you're at Mythics, all you care about is DPS. Unless Tyrael's Might is now like a regular unique that can randomly drop when you're still leveling up to level 60 and you get it, you're like, cool. So I would still say it's probably going to be a skip for most good builds. I think what they should have done is really just beefed up all of the defensive stats to make this the ultimate defensive armor. Just giving it crazy amounts of HP or something like that could make some people want to run it if their build is like really squishy. But again, Tyrael's Might's a defensive item, not offensive. If you really wanted people to run it, make it more offensive. Maybe like when you hit someone, Tyrael comes down from the sky and like banishes a monster or something really cool, right? Make it feel like a mythic, because all it's giving you is a bunch of defensive stats, which again, players don't really see as something desirable. All right, Andariel's Visage. So the inherent poison resistance, so you just don't get the poison resistance anymore. Now, maximum poison resistance affix is replaced with 666 poison resistance affix. Okay, this is my first time checking this out. I got excited actually seeing that Andariel was getting an update here, but like all of these are so mid for the most part. The only one I see potential is like if this is 100% on the primary stat on Selig so far. But like, I was hoping that you would get like extra 666 base damage. That would be actually pretty cool. And Darius is such a cool, unique item in the game that allows a build to be all based around this thing. And it was really cool in like, what, Season 5? And then it just fell off the face of the earth when you reworked all the item power number changes, right? And I think this is such a huge disappointment that you just gave different poison res. Like it doesn't really do anything. You're just reworking it to fit the new like season because of the new resistance changes. Okay, so I was scrolling down to see if there's anything else. There's a bunch of other changes, but I wanted this video to basically focus in on the mythic items, and I'm gonna say that like it's still pretty much the same. Like as every single build is almost always going to be the same exact 3 mythics that are the only desirable ones, and the rest are considered like F tier, right? And it's really disappointing because like Air of Perdition, Harlequin, these are great. You don't really need to change these, but if you wanted to like, you know, buff them, I would say that that's cool, but they're already pretty much the best ones in the game. And the Chaos Uniques, I really added some flavor to it, but to see the Andariel's, instead of getting 666, you just get like some other like number, it like, you should have made like the lucky hit chance to be 100%, and then also buff up the base damage to make builds actually able to be played now. I think that that was a huge area that you missed out on. Also, maybe make some mythic gloves, make some mythic boots, some pants. It would be really cool to see other updates to the items that people don't really run, like Doombringer. Who's playing Doombringer? No one. There's no updates to Doombringer. Hopefully this could be something to see in the future as well, but again, there's also the update to the Shattered Vow, where again, it's like you get the damage over time duration. It's implicit did get an update, but does this warrant a change? Because if you go to like a two-handed aspect and you were to, let's say, play again Creeping Death, this is 40x on a two-hander. This is for each crowd control effect, if you're doing some sort of dot, right, you would want this to stack up. You're losing way too much by just running, let's say, Shattered Vow as a two-handed for, you know, whatever class that can even equip it. And I think that that's super disappointing. Also, what about that Spiritborn one, the Seekim? This was actually going to be the most OP item in the game. And what was so sad is when we finally got the game, like this thing in the game, it was nerfed and like no one plays this. Like, you're losing out on a two-handed aspect. It's just too big of a drop. I want to say, honestly, I like that they at least acknowledge that these items, they need to change them. I think these are just changes to match like the update, but like at least they changed Selig to try to do something, but I still think that like they don't understand it fully. Maybe I'm wrong though. Maybe we need to test it out, but you guys let me know what you think of these new mythic changes. I'll be honest, I went in with an open mind, but I'm looking at like there's like a huge disappointment. Buff the numbers up, make these actually desirable, because most of the times, every single time people see a mythic drop, it's the Selig, and you are just sitting there with disappointment. Maybe what they could have done is Melted Heart of Selig salvages into 3 sparks. That would have been a better update than what we got here, and that would have been less work. I'm really disappointed with these mythics, but that's the good thing with feedback. Please, Blizzard, buff these up to actually be mythics. Buff these up to make builds around. I think that would be probably the coolest thing with Andariel's. Make this whole thing that you can make a character all about Andariel's Visage. And then same thing with any of the other ones. Like, for example, if Melted Heart Selig, like I mentioned before, like broke all the caps that you would have on any of the damage numbers, then it would be an actual mythic. Otherwise, it's just like, well, okay, cool. I get this mythic Tierlist, okay, I have extra damage reduction. They should have looked at the little like arrows that shoot out, right? You guys, if you guys remember like the whirlwind builds, it would just expand the whirlwind, it would shoot out. Make the whole build all around that. Like, make these mythics cool enough to make a build around versus just like just a numbers game. Because when the numbers games get implemented in, again, on two-handed aspects, they just become worthless. That's the reality of like the high level Diablo play. But even like the lower, like, you know, scrub players, they know that like Melted Heart Selig is memes. Anyways, ranted long enough. Super disappointing. But that's the update to the mythics, man. I wanted to see more. Let me know your thoughts down below. But that's a good thing with feedback. So please, Blizzard, you need to completely rework. Just change the numbers. Make them better, man.